Hello, Professor.
Yeah, hi, Robin.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm going to say at the start that math and chemistry, I'm not really good at equations, but I kind of get concepts pretty well. So I was looking at some other things today in relation to Fort Gillem, and I ran across one study that had similarly injected microbes and I don't know what else into, I think it was, let me see which chemical it was. I want to say it's one of the, something like the 112 or 111 trichloroethane. I'm not 100% sure. But then what it broke it down into was vinyl chloride as one of the byproducts. That doesn't sound like a really helpful idea.
This is my way of looking at it. Fort Gillem is a location that is needed for a lot of activities, and there are residential areas around there. If we had vinyl chloride form, it will not be a good thing because it will easily get into basements. It's a volatile organic compound. So in residential areas or in areas that are close to residential areas, I will go with something that is not likely to form vinyl chloride. Not only that, you have a situation where you have metals and organics. So you have two problems there. Well, two groups of contaminants to address. Also, I would like to think that given the location, you want to go aggressively. So, bioremediation works, but the chances of failure are high in some cases. I haven't looked at the geochemistry of the site. I don't know if reducing conditions already exist or they don't, but just looking at Fort Gillem and knowing what I know, I would go with a chemical process that can handle both organics and metals.
Okay, now when you say, just for people who don't know, what is a reducing process? Is that something like runoff into the neighborhood?
No. In the ground, in the subsurface, in groundwater, if there is a lot of recharge into that groundwater from surface water, you can carry oxygen in, right? So the concentration of oxygen in the groundwater will be high. That will create aerobic conditions. If the groundwater is such that there is not a lot of oxygen or is depleted in oxygen, you have anaerobic conditions. Okay, so based on what you have, you want to take advantage of those conditions in a remediation process. Trichloroethylene can undergo degradation under aerobic and anaerobic, absence of oxygen conditions. But you want to take advantage of the conditions that already exist in the groundwater. If aerobic conditions exist in the groundwater, you take advantage of the aerobic conditions so that it does not require you to do a whole lot of work. If anaerobic conditions do prevail, you want to take advantage of those anaerobic conditions because you are enhancing those anaerobic conditions rather than changing them. I know they want to use biodegradation, but it's just that with biodegradation, things can go wrong. And they can go wrong because when the bacteria fail to establish themselves, they get, they get outcompeted over the long term because this is not going to happen in 5 years. Okay, so over that duration of time, if those microorganisms, those bacteria get outcompeted by indigenous bacteria, then you've got a problem.
Now, I have a link to the study. Did I send you a link to the proposal? That the draft proposed plan that the Army has put out or their contractor has put out? Let me see if I can share.
Yeah, I looked at it and
That's I wonder, it may say anaerobic in there, but I'm not 100% sure.
yeah, it has to be anaerobic if they're using bacteria, because they will use bacteria and organics. So organics quickly reduce the oxygen content in the groundwater. So I'm thinking that is anaerobic, it's anaerobic biodegradation that they are going to use, which produces either ethene, which is the complete, after all the chlorines are removed, which produces ethene, which is get oxidized to carbon dioxide, or if the process is not complete, it produces vinyl chloride.
And then you have a whole other set of problems because that's very bad when it gets into your blood and everything else.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the process is going to take care of the, as designed, will take care of the metals as well. And that is why the reason I wrote to you is because I thought that because they have metals and organics, one needs to be very creative in order to address them with, in the same simultaneously.
I believe they said they're only going to concentrate on two things. And one of those is TCE, trichloroethane, trichloroethylene, and what was the other one? Let's see. Remedial action objectives. It was TCE was one, I know for a fact. TCE and 1122 tetrachloroethane. Those are the ones that they're concentrating on with this proposal.
And what will happen to the other contaminants?
Got me. I don't know. I don't know that they're even addressing them.
Do you have you all reviewed any data on the efficacy of the method?
No, sir, that's where I'm at now. I'm trying to really quickly to get up to speed, and there's no way I'm going to get everything done before Friday, before people can comment. But I'm trying to get as much as I can.
Did the company that wrote the record of decision not provide supporting data?
If they did, I don't believe it's in. Let me look at the back of the study.
Then, because if you don't have that data, there is very, remember, I haven't reviewed much more than what I saw here when I read the posting by Lenny, then I pulled up this report and reviewed it. I would have liked to have more information, but based on what I saw, I just wanted to say, I hope we think through this, or you think through this before they move forward and spend a whole lot of money. Technologies fail. Technologies sometimes do not address the objectives, the cleanup objectives. And so before I ever get anything started, I like to think through and see, just in case it didn't work out, what do I do? Or is there something else that I could be doing besides what I'm using? And there are other technologies out there that, quite aggressive. I don't know if you want to use an aggressive approach or not. There are technologies out there that are quite aggressive that would simultaneously address metals and organics, and the organics of concern that are present at this site.
Now,
So, but I don't have that information. I'm just, remember, I'm not claiming anything here.
Right.
I'm just throwing my little experience into the discussion.
Right, and I appreciate it so much. There are chemicals concerned. There's about maybe a dozen or more chemicals concerned that they listed, and they were talking about scenarios they ran for hypothetical, construction worker and person who just works on the base and recreational users off the base. I don't think there's going to be a lot of canoeing happening in the little neighborhood stream over there, but casual contact with the surface water. And they came up with type 1 and type 3 RSS values, so human health risk values, but they didn't clarify whether they got those numbers from the EPA or Georgia EPD, and I'm not entirely sure those numbers are the same. And then both of those agencies say those numbers are subject to change. So, I mean, what is it that people have to go on here? They list, all of the values were the same, and we're talking about micrograms per liter, okay?
Yeah.
But there was one, the one was it's TECA, which I think is the 1,1,2-trifluoroethylene, if I'm not mistaken. TECA, they suggested that 0.8 micrograms per liter was the acceptable limit for residents who live near the base, and 3.3 micrograms per liter for people who work on the base. I'm not sure why that is, and I'm not sure which agency's numbers they're using, if they're the same.
Any thought, any discussion about synergistic effects?
It's impossible to know whose numbers they're using. I just have to call the Corps of Engineers and/or the contractor who apparently put together this proposal. Something APTIM, APTIM Federal Services in Knoxville, Tennessee. Do you know them by any chance?
Yeah, I know that office. I haven't worked with them.
Okay.
Yeah, I probably seen them on some write-ups or shared emails or something, but I don't particularly know, know them or I have not worked with them. But I suppose the numbers that they use probably came from EPA. Or, well, you can call up EPD and ask them if they provided those numbers or they approve of those numbers. I know that if they're working on an EPA contract or Army Corps of Engineer contract, they're mostly talking to the Corps and the EPA. But it could be they're talking to EPD as well.
Yeah. I believe EPD had gotten the EPA in on kind of leaning on them to do the cleanup a few years ago. I'm not sure who they're working with directly. I think they work directly with EPD, but I have to double check.
Okay.
Okay, so given what little you know, okay, what would be an alternative that you might suggest that could be useful?
They could use chemical. There is a new breakthrough that just came out, which uses persulfate and diphenide.
Can you spell those for me, please?
Persulfate?
Is it per-PER sulfate?
Yes.
What's the other one?
Diphenide. DITHIONITE.
Diphenide.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that one. So what do they do exactly?
They all dissolve in water. You inject it. In situ injection. And you can inject it across the entire plume, or you can use a recirculation system the way they have. I like to go aggressive for such a site and inject it, use a geoprobe and inject it across the entire plume. That way you go aggressive. The source area, you load it more. The leading edge, you put less.
So it's kind of basically what they're proposing to do with the injection, but you would just inject something other than what they're offering, right?
Correct. Correct.
So do you know how much quicker? I mean, is this a, I know you said it's a more effective approach. Do you know if it's a more rapid approach?
It's more rapid, it's more aggressive. And if you see that things are not happening, you can come back and do a quick re-injection.
Okay. And I know it really depends on the site and the concentrations and
Yeah. I haven't seen data. I don't know what the pH is. I don't know what the exact redox conditions are, but I'm offering this information with no background information, the site hydrogeology and geochemistry. So, but I know that these methods work because you see, persulfate works over a range of pH values. And so you can work from, from, to activate this, you can work from, low acid concentration. I mean, not low acid, but low, somewhere around pH 5 to about pH 9. And you'll be fine working in those pH ranges and still see very effective degradation.
okay.
So I hope, that the chemists on the project, will talk to you and explain. Well, I guess they probably have a biologist doing the biodegradation, but.
Well, this is very, very helpful. Thank you so much. And is there anything else that you think people should know to ask before the comment period closes?
I just think that they need to provide the rationale for using those numbers. The citizens are not scientists, except there are some amongst you who are scientists, and they understand the rationale for those numbers. Are they considering the synergistic effects, the exposure routes? Limited site users see that. But how do you know? Developments will come into these areas, right? We have seen some of those areas become prime real estate very quickly. And people ignore that there were restrictions and go ahead and want to make quick money, develop the area, put things in place that they were not supposed to put. So I like to err on the side of caution, and go after it. If you are going to inject something anyway, what I'm asking to be injected is, look, I haven't changed the method of application, still injection. But in this case, instead of injecting biological organisms, you are injecting chemical reagents.
And those reagents, the persulfate and the dithionite, that's all that would go in there?
Yeah.
And
depending on the pH, you might adjust the pH using some regularly commercially available chemicals. You adjust the pH.
I'm there. I know that they've put aside. They're estimating $1.9 million for their proposal. What are the comparable costs for? I mean, I know you don't have the full information, but is that
these chemicals are not expensive?
Yeah.
It doesn't change the box. To engineer those boxes and bring them there, and the nutrients is more expensive than the chemicals. That is what I know.
Okay. Very good. If I get more information, I will email you and let you know what I find out. If it's
okay.
You and I thank you so much. How do you pronounce your last name?
Nzengung.
Nzengung. Okay. Well, Dr. Nzengung, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Take care.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.